everybody, this is Denise with purplepaperparadise.com, and today I'm going to show you a few little tips and tricks that I've learned with the eCraft. And a lot of these actually I got from the eCraft Crafters Yahoo group, so if you're not a member of that group you should really join. And I wish I could remember who offered up these tips, but I really can't remember. But I've had a chance to kind of try them out and see how they work, and really some great ideas here. So keep it up, everybody. Let's see what we can do with this machine. Now, one of the things that I want to show you real quick is when you load paper in from the front, you got to make sure it's going in straight. And if you see, I'm going to purposely try and load this in a little bit crooked. See if I can get it to kind of, if you notice here, you'll see like paper starting to kind of come up a little bit. So it's not quite going in straight. When you have that, you're going to have some issues with your cuts maybe not lining up correctly. So you really need to be aware of getting your paper to go in perfectly straight. So the way that I do that is I put my paper in and I make sure going along all the way that it's lined up right in there with that roller. And then I put my hand here and just apply a little light pressure as my paper feeds in. And then you'll see that it's gone in pretty much perfectly straight. You can kind of tell when you look at your cutting plate if it's gone in straight or not. If it hasn't gone in straight, take it out and reload it, because you're just asking for trouble if you don't do that. Now, one of the tips that someone had offered is to a way to find your pressure setting when you are not using a stabilizer. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that. I'm just going to go into quick mode here, and I'm going to select the tree. And what I'm going to do here is I've got my pressure gauge all the way down at 1, and I'm going to go ahead and hit cut here. And then as it's cutting, I'm going to move this dial up until I see the blue light coming on. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm starting to get flickering, but right there at 6, that looks like where I'm getting a pretty steady blue light. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut that again by keeping my pressure at 6, and we'll see how that cut removes. You want to, as a rule of thumb, you want to cut with the lowest amount of pressure as you can, because that way, first off, you're not dulling out your blade too much by applying too much pressure when you don't need it. But also then too, you're not taking a chance on getting tears and stuff. So if you're getting that blue light coming on, and I did cut this with tabs since I don't have a stabilizer in here, you can see now that this tree, even though it's not one of the easiest ones to remove when you're using tabs, it does come out pretty nice and clean here. Trying to do this quickly, so I apologize if I rip this when I'm trying to get it out, but I just want to be able to show you how well that works. That is really a great way to find your pressure setting when you're trying to cut without a mat. And most cardstocks can be cut without a mat. Now, a lot of times people prefer to use the stabilizer because they think that they get a cleaner cut with it. And some cardstocks, that's the case. It really depends on the paper. Not so much your machine, but the quality of the paper that you're using. So if you have a particular type of paper that you're trying to cut and you're not getting clean cuts on it, it's very possible that there's something about the paper or your environment that is prohibiting it from cutting well. So and maybe I'll get into that in a future video on some tricks that you can do if you're having a paper that's not cutting well for you, what you can do to get it to cut better. Now, one of the other things that I want to show you, I'm just going to go ahead and remove this, and this is talking about a stabilizer, is someone else on the eCraft group had mentioned that they went to Dollar Tree and bought these chopping mats, set of 2 flexible chopping mats. You get 2 of them for $1. And that they were working really well as a stabilizer. So I went ahead and got some, and I've been playing around with it, and it actually does work really nicely. The mat itself is just, you can see, a hair shorter than 12 inches wide, and I would guess that this is probably about 14 to 15 inches long. And when I use this, I do not load it up all the way to the bottom. I load it more in the middle, and the reason for that is that since it is so much longer than a 12 by 12 piece of paper, what can happen is the mat can get stuck back here on the back edge of your tray. So if you load up your paper all the way to this edge, and you can see when I feed it in all the way like this, you can see that it gets stuck back here. And that can cause you to have some bad cuts as well. So we don't want to do that. We want to actually use it more in the middle. Even if you just place it up an inch or two, that's all you really need to do. Now, using the same pressure setting of 6, I'm going to go ahead and cut this tree. Now, one of the things that I have found when you use a stabilizer, especially like this one, instead of just a regular piece of cardstock, is that it seems like you need less pressure than what you would without it. So we're going to see how this cuts on a 6. We may get some tearing here, but we may also be able to reduce our pressure. Now, since we've got the stabilizer here, we're not going to get the blue light. And it looks like I didn't get any tearing on this, so this would be actually work as a fine cut. But you can actually see where it has so much pressure that at the end of these branches it kind of pulled up that top layer of paper there. So this really isn't a cut that I would like to use, but you can see that it did in fact cut through all the way. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce my pressure down to 5.5 and see how that cuts. But it does seem like with this kind of stabilizer that you need less pressure than what you would either without a stabilizer or even with a cardstock stabilizer. It seems like it's less pressure, so we'll see how this 5.5 cut. And it looks like we may have had a little bit more of the same thing, so we may actually be able to cut this out on a little bit, but not as bad as the last cut. So this actually at 5.5 would work out pretty well, but just to see, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out at a pressure of 5 and see how that works. The other thing too about these chopping mats is make sure you get these ones from Dollar Tree. I actually saw some at Target that I had bought on clearance and thought, oh, I'll try these. And they were probably about twice as thick as these ones here and did not work well at all. You couldn't even, it was too thick to even feed into the eCraft. So you don't want to do that. And as you can see here, this 5 is actually coming out pretty nicely. I didn't get a lot, I've still got a little bit of fraying here on the ends, but not much. It's actually something that I would just go ahead and consider a decent cut to work with. But it did actually cut through, well, maybe not. Maybe there's one section here that looks like it didn't quite cut through all the way. Well, maybe it did. There was a tab there that was causing a little trickiness. This tree is much better without tabs. I should try cutting it without the tabs. Let's do that real quick. I'm going to go to my tab setting. This is the new 2.0 version. I'm going to select no tabs. And we'll go back in and cut this tree at 5 and see what happens. Oh, you know what? Okay, I accidentally put in 2 trees in here, but that's okay. We're going to just see how it goes. So let's go ahead and cut. I really wish I could remember who gave me the idea for doing that pressure dial setting and also for these chopping mats, because it does seem to work out pretty well, and really a great trick to have in place. So here you can see the 5, whereas before we needed a 6 without the mat. This is just coming right off. You know, a little bit of with these branches because they're so tiny, just working them out there real quick, but there you go. We've got our tree cut out at a pressure of 5 using a stabilizer like this. And I have found too that because this is thicker than a piece of cardstock, that it does seem to hold on to it a lot tighter. And it seems like I get better cuts using this as my stabilizer. So this is going to be my stabilizer of choice from now on. And I bought a couple packages of these chopping mats. I think I'm actually going to go back to Dollar Tree and stock up on them just in case they stop carrying them. But if you find some chopping mats or something like this that works for you, please let me know, because I would love to try it out, and also let everyone else know about some other options, especially in case you don't have a Dollar Tree near you. So that's it for today, and tomorrow I'm going to have a tutorial for you that I think you'll really enjoy using Make the Cut, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.